I started from nothing, never knew where my next meal was coming. But I transformed my life, I stay one step ahead. Mindset of disruption, I own the edge. This is the ThrillCast, where I bring the wisdom you need. Everyone is selling knowledge, I give mine away for free. I'm as real as it gets, you either love or hate me. Best believe I'm Major League Bill Hines, that's me. This is the ThrillCast. This is the ThrillCast. This is the ThrillCast.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the ThrillCast. I can't believe we're just pounding these things out week by week, so we're staying consistent like we promised. But today we have an amazing guest, and I'm going to introduce him here. And even though, again, another guest that needs no introduction, he's an IndyCar driver. He's recently raced an Indy 500, and just a great guy. First time I ever met him was actually in the paddock, in actually the garage area of during, I forget what Indy 500, but a few years ago, when we were just sitting there, and then he walks up and sits next to me and was the nicest guy ever. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Stefan Wilson, how you doing?
Hey, thanks, Bill. It's great to be on, and look forward to talking to you.
I don't think you remember the first time we met, because during the month of May, so many people come up to you, but we were, I don't know what year it was. It was
I reckon it was 2017.
Yes.
Because I think it was the year that I stepped out for Fernando Alonso to take my seat. And I spent most of that month just hanging out with Mario around the garage area and around the Andretti hospitality. So I must have sat down next to you there. I knew who you were before then, obviously, follow each other on social media and etc. So you were racing though. You were. Oh, I was.
No, you raced in.
Maybe that was 2018 then. The following year.
You did Andretti in 18, right?
Yeah. I came back in 2018 and raced for Andretti that year. Yeah.
Yeah,
must have been that year then.
Yeah, it was because 17 we had Carlos Munoz as our driver, and then
that's right.
18 we did Marco, kind of as the fifth car at that point. I think he was doing, or the one off, or how he does that. And and you just you were in the garage for the that area for the technical stuff. Where all the engineers are, during a practice or something. It wasn't like race day.
Yeah.
And we were talking. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then I just thought you were very gentlemanly, as you Brits are, right?
We try to be.
We try to be.
At least in the garage area, not so much on the track.
Not so much on the track. So tell me, I could, obviously, I like to say this, I could pull up anybody's Wikipedia and just start reading off of it, but that's not going to basically tell the listeners about, it's going to tell the listeners about someone, but I'd rather have the listeners hear from you. That's why you're on. I could, if anything, I could just be alone on a podcast. Let's talk about Stefan Wilson and how he did this and how he started in F3 and, just go through all this stuff and rattle it off and be like, well, that was pretty boring. So, one, obviously you were born in Sheffield, England. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah, that's correct. Sheffield, England. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're famous for steel. We have, two football teams, Sheffield United or Sheffield Wednesday. You have to pick one of the two.
Which one did you pick?
Kind of Sheffield United.
Oh.
So I think they're in the Premier League at the minute, actually. So good for them. I think they're going to get relegated there, but that's not so good. But we're famous for steel, the two football teams, and also a film called The Full Monty. So I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I've heard of that, The Full Monty. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what Sheffield is famous for. Yeah, I grew up there. My dad had this passion for racing, which started back when he was racing back in the 60s. He raced against guys like James Hunt, Emerson Fittipaldi. He's got pictures of being on the front row with James Hunt at Brands Hatch in Formula Ford, and he had a bad accident and decided that he was going to stop racing and focus on business. And but he always carried on that and continued to have that passion for racing, which, he shared with myself and my older brother as well. And Justin, who was 11 years older than me, went on to race in Formula One back in 2003, and then came over to the States to pursue a career in IndyCar. He made 8 Indy 500 starts, but he passed away in 2015. So being 11 years younger than him, I kind of always looked up to him. And, when I started my racing career, racing go-karts, he was in Formula One, and I just thought it was the coolest thing that he made it and he achieved that goal of reaching that level of the sport. I mean, that is such an achievement just to make it into that series. So yeah, I definitely looked up to him as he was kind of like my hero in a way,
like a superhero.
Even though he was my older brother, we had this really good relationship. And so I started my racing career in go-karts. Moved to single seater racing cars in when I was 16. Was basically fast tracked the career quite fast, actually. Like I went from Formula Palmer Audi straight into Formula 3, and won the McLaren Autosport Award, and was actually able to test for the McLaren Formula 1 team back in 2009. That was actually. So I got to test the 2008 McLaren that won the World Championship. So that was
wow,
super cool. But even from an early part of my career, I kind of already knew that, the pathway to the top level of the sport over in Europe, Formula One, and that was the goal from being 9 years old, racing go-karts. But it was very clear at that point that path had gotten so steep that it was pretty much impossible to climb and make it there. So at the time, Justin was racing in the States, and I quickly switched focus and focused on moving to America at 19, and pursuing a career trying to make it to the highest level possible over here, which was IndyCar and the Indy 500, and was able to fortunately do that. I've raced in 5 Indy 500s, and each one that I've raced in has just been an absolute honor to be part of that grid. I mean, only 33 drivers a year get to race in that race, and you have to qualify in. And I think of all the history behind that race, the 100 years of history involved in that race. It definitely is. I count it as an honor to be among the starters.
Well, starters, heck, the one year you were about 4 laps away from winning the whole damn thing. I mean, and the crowd went nuts. I mean, the crowd loves you in IndyCar, and they love the Wilson brothers. So, but speaking of your brother, when he was in F1 and you were in karting, you must have been like the rock star on the karting track. Like, how did you take that? Like, everyone probably knew, like, you and your dad was probably with you, and your parents are there, and it's like, oh my, that's his brother's in F1. Like, how did you deal with that type of fame at that level? Because even as a kid, you got to stay grounded, because it's like, wait a minute, that's my brother. That's not me. And
that's exactly right. Like, I never felt that. Like, I never felt like I was hot shit because my brother was doing what he was doing. I just felt like super proud, and I was probably like a little, a little too proud. Like I was always, I love talking about him. I thought it was the coolest thing that he was in Formula One, but I never felt like that made me special or anything like that. I had to go and prove that for myself, and prove myself. And just because I was his brother didn't mean shit. Yeah. So I'd go and earn it, So, I guess I never really thought about it like that, like what people viewed me as. Like, I just got on with what I was doing and racing, and, no one kind of gave me any breaks for it. I never felt like they did anyway. So, it was just kind of like, I was just super proud. And like, that's the only way I could describe it. It's just like super happy for him. And it's tough because there was such an age gap that, when he was racing in Formula One, I never really, as we got older, that age gap kind of shrinks, if that makes sense. When you get to like in your mid 20s or so, like, you sort of catch up a little, and you're on a similar, part of life with each other. So you kind of understand each other's perspective. So I just wish that I'd been older at the time to understand what he was dealing with. And, the business of Formula One is just so cutthroat. It's so interesting at the same time. But I just got snippets of it as being, 12-year-old, 13-year-old racing go-karts. I was just hearing bits and pieces of what was going on in behind closed doors. Some not so good things about just the sport and industry as a whole. And particularly Formula One at the time, like some of the dealings. I wish I'd been old enough to sort of be there for him and support him through some of those challenges as well, So, but he found a lot of happiness when he came over to the States and raced in IndyCar, because I think that's what he was all about, was the racing, and just wanted to go out there and compete on the racetrack. He wasn't so much interested in the shenanigans that go on behind closed doors, like the politics, shall we say, of the sport.
Yeah, I mean, interesting when you said nobody gave you anything like for the karting, meaning oh, I got a free pass and that. But do you think maybe the other drivers drove you harder because they're like, okay, well, he's going to be good because of the pedigree, and I'm sure his brother taught him one or two things. So, instead of not them giving you, but do you think people were taking away from you in a way? Like we're saying, okay, we got to be stricter on him, or, and how in the States, especially, we call them, my good buddy down in Australia, Paul Morris, as you know, they call them BMX dads. Like so it's the other people, like he shouldn't be in there because his brother's in F1. It's like, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I never actually, this is the first time I actually even thought about it, like how it sort of maybe changed how I was treated differently, on the track. I guess possibly, I guess, sometimes I think back, there was, some incidents where, I felt like the other driver at the time did something that I wasn't too happy about. But I never thought about it, why they were doing it. So I guess that makes sense now, So, I think back how I would have handled it as well, like knowing that you're trying to prove yourself and you need to take shots to someone else to kind of do that. But I never really thought about it until you just said that, actually. So,
so one thing that strikes me when you answer that question, how to me, and obviously I knew your brother. I didn't know if you knew that I knew your brother, obviously, from just being around. He was an Andretti driver.
Yeah.
What I knew about your brother was that he was a very uber focused type of individual, and everyone loved him, but on the track, he was focused. So same similarities, whereas you're saying, hey, I didn't notice the noise around me. Okay. So that's a testament to your parents as well, that they had these two super focused, gentlemen, boys, that were so focused on their career that they were able to not deal with the noise around them. Because again, your brother being in F1, I'm sure he had a lot of noise. And to your point, man, it's like catch-22. It's like, hey, I liked my age I was at, but I wish I was a little bit older so I could have been a fly on the wall to learn what he learned, because it would have made my path easier
for sure
for IndyCar or wherever.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you talk about that actually, and that's the biggest, one of the things that I think Justin was so good at was just filtering out all the noise. And just, one of the best advice he always gave me was just focus on what you can control, and anything else that's not in your control is just going to end up distracting you from the bits that you can control. And I think that was the best advice that he ever gave me, because even though he paid me that compliment saying that I was good at filtering out and then just focusing on and not letting other things affect me, I still think that is a weakness of mine, and I notice it. And he was so good at that, at just not letting outside distractions take away his focus. And I think even Mario said that to me. He said he he raced for Andretti in 2015 at Indy, and Mario told me afterwards, he was like, I went in the garage area and into the garage at Andretti, and he said that, there's 6 drivers for Andretti at that year, and 5 drivers are, there'd been some kind of rule change between like the Honda and Chevys. It was a very intense battle between Honda and Chevy, and the Honda drivers, at that particular year were on the back foot, and Chevy was clearly had the advantage, and something changed in the rules. I don't know. I wasn't fully aware at that time, but like apparently something happened, and
I think it had something to do with the wicker, and like the Hondas had to run a wicker and the Chevys didn't.
Possibly. Yeah. It must have been something like that. And he said, Mario just said, he was like, I went into the garage area and he got 5 drivers just flapping. I think these are the words he used. They had 5 drivers just flapping about what all this rule change and all this BS and blah, blah, blah. And he said, and your brother was just there, just not phased, just working away. And that year he qualified the highest Andretti car, and he qualified the highest Honda car in the field. I think he qualified 6th, which was like a huge achievement to be in a Honda, was already on the back foot and still qualified 6th. He was like, I would say that was probably his biggest strength, was just the self-confidence he had and the ability just to filter all the noise out. And I'm still striving to get as good at that as he was.
Well, I mean, and you're definitely on your way with that. I know he'd be proud of you today. And I wasn't more so complimenting you or your brother, more so than I was complimenting your parents for doing the hell of a job. Because you guys, what great young men you guys are, and it starts at the top. It starts with the parents. I always say there's no bad children, just bad parents. So that's a big key of that. And so the next thing I want to really talk to you about, not to transition from that. Okay, now we have you all grown up now. Indy 500. So you've done 5 Indy 500s, and your last Indy 500 was a bit of a big challenge because. I thought, you and your teammate was Ryan Hunter-Reay, right? And you guys did it for what you had in the team. You were doing a really good job. And, and Ryan Hunter-Reay back in 2014 proved that you can qualify way back and still win that race. It's 500 miles. It's a long race. So it really doesn't matter where you qualify. Yeah, sure, you want to be on pole for the prestige. But, take me through that to where – you're doing your job, and all of a sudden you not even in your control. It's in a practice, and somebody just runs over the back of you. And you got hurt really bad, and it's actually from a fellow countrywoman as well. I don't know if that's how you call it, but it's I
think probably something like that. I think it really stems before that. I've done 5 Indy 500s, and each time it's just like. It's such a fight to get to be in a position to even qualify for that race. Like you're fighting like nonstop all year, dealing with the politics just to try and get into a position where you can get your ass into a seat. And, it's I've done this 4 other times coming into May this year, but this is the first time that we got it done back in like October. We got this deal done to race for John Reinbold. They're a team that's just uber focused on Indy, and partnering with Ryan Hunter-Reay, an ex-Indy 500 winner, series champion. It's like, he's sort of retired, sort of semi-retired, and then came back in just to do Indy as a one-off. And it was just I looked at it going into May, and I'm like, this is the best opportunity I've ever had, to do well at Indy and kind of prove that I belong and deserve to be there. And it was a really great month. The team gave me a really good car, and there's the I'd say the Indy 500 as a whole has just gone so competitive. So when you look at where I qualified, I'm like, it's not good enough. I'm not satisfied with that, but at the same time, we were solidly in the field and we were in the hunt. The difference, the spread in the field was so tight that I'm sort of satisfied. Like pretty happy with the sort of speed I ran. Like I qualified at a a 4-lap average of 231.6 miles an hour, which I'm like,
that's
stoked that we're
big number
over the 230 bracket. Yeah, it's a big number, and another mile an hour, and it's like we're 10 places higher. So, or I mean, it's even more than that. The spread was the field was so good.
It was hundredths of a second. They don't realize hundreds of a second you could be either pole or 18th. A hundredths of a second.
Yeah. So I felt good about the job I'd done all month. The engineers were super happy. Like, I provided feedback that lined up exactly with what Ryan was also giving feedback on. And it was nice, actually, because I've been teammates with Ryan before, but at Andretti, and there's just so many cars there that you just don't spend any time with your teammates and talking or really getting to sort of interact with them. So this time we're kind of interacting directly with each other. And it's like, I felt like the respect, I really earned some respect from Ryan, like during that week of practice leading up to qualifying. And, from the first day, we sort of encountered a problem with the setup. We both went different directions, experimenting, and it ended up being that the direction I went, I was really happy with. And the direction he went, he was sort of semi-happy with. But I'm like, I'm telling you, the direction I went, I'm super happy. I'm sticking to it, and I'm going this way. And he was like kind of questioning me, like he wasn't sure. Anyway, he goes the same direction, like switches to what I ran. And he comes in, he's like, you were absolutely right. Like, that was the right call, the right move. So like from that point on, it's like he realized, like, I felt like I earned that respect from him. And that was a huge achievement in my eyes, to earn respect from a guy that's won the Indy 500 and got the experience that he has. So I felt good about the job I did. And then we qualified solidly in the field. Now we're focused on the race. I felt like we had a better race car than we did qualifying car anyway. And yeah, it just, all came to a conclusion in the turn 1 safety barrier. I mean, I was just kind of going about my day. But I was following other cars. We were working on the race setup, analyzing what the car was giving us, what we needed to do better. And coming into turn 1, all of a sudden, the only thing I heard was my spotter key up at the last second, like, oh shit. So I hear that in my ear, and I'm like, that's not good. That's not what you want to hear from your spotter at the middle of turn 1. And, there was nothing I could do. I got tagged and spun around and hit the wall, and it was kind of a really odd crash. Just the driver behind must have been a bit distracted or something, wasn't paying attention. And, everyone, you have to give a gap. Everyone just sort of checks up. I could see the car ahead of me, or a couple of cars ahead of me was passing. So when that happens, naturally the car has to ease off, and then that sort of creates this accordion. But you can see it 4 or 5 columns ahead. That what's going to happen, and they weren't anticipating that clearly. And I just got right on the back of. So that was that. So ended up fracturing the T12 vertebrae, needing surgery. Had a couple of rods and 8 screws put in there to stabilize it all. So it's been a challenge to get back to full fitness, and I'm back there. But right now, as it stands today, I'm not set to be on the grid for Indy this year. So I'm working on trying to fix that. But it might be that I might be out this year, and I'll be continuing to work hard to hopefully make it back there in 2025.
Well, there's no doubt with your determination and tenacity toward this goal that it may not be this year, and it just may be this year, but you will definitely be back in that race again, and and be toward the front like you were when you were leading laps late in was that the 2018 race, right?
It was, yeah. That was probably like the best feeling.
How cool was that? Because listen, I was at that race, and you took the lead. Like, you can't hear it in the car. You got the engine, you got your in-ears, and the crowd went nuts. Now I'm actually getting chills, and there's certain drivers that when that driver took a lead at Indy, Like it happened with Connor Daly just because he's the local boy. You just because of your family lineage and you were a fan favorite, and Marco, the Andretti, Rahal, like, so the big names in racing, so what's that feeling like? I guess you really don't feel it in the car or see it in the car, and I don't think you're like driving around looking up at turn one looking to see like, hey, look, they're waving at me.
Yeah, no, I was looking up towards the catch fence, but for another reason.
Yeah.
They have the yellow lights on the catch fences,
Yeah.
and we were that close to the end that as I took the lead, I remember kind of one eye was kind of looking at the catch fence, like if that light turns yellow now,
I won.
This dream that I've been chasing so hard and like put so much just sweat equity into and blood, sweat, and tears. It's like it's finally it's achieved. Like it's like, wow, it was the most incredible feeling. It's like, it sounds so cliche, right? That you can taste it, but I could literally taste it. Like
you could taste the milk.
You could taste it. Like, all day I've been running in dirty air, and that year, it was the first year of the aero kits in 2018. Like they changed the design,
yeah,
and it made it much harder to pass and really race. It gone from the previous year where it was really easy to draft and pass to now in 2018. So it's just brutal all day to be in dirty air and trying to not crash.
Yeah.
And taking the lead, I went to the outside, and all of a sudden, just the track ahead of you just opens up, and you've just got clean air, and it's like the best feeling, the best the car's felt all day.
Handling better, all that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you can just tell as well that it's got that kind of feel that it's at the end of the race too. Like there's bits of trash flying, and on the inside of the track, there's tons of marbles. Like the sun's going down a little bit, so you just had that just that feeling of like, okay, we're at the very end of the Indy 500 here, and I'm in the lead of the race. Like it was a cool feeling, something that I'll never forget. And then we didn't win. We had to pit for fuel because we were going to run out. I got so many people be like, why didn't you just carry on? And I'm like, it was not like a question of like, can we make it? It was like, what point down the backstretch on lap 196 will we run out? So there was no ability to like wing it and keep going. I had to pit for fuel. And
were you that close? Were you that close? Like, was it one? Like, I was going to ask you, like, okay, do you think you could have got to 198 or 199?
Yeah, we would have ran out if I'd stayed on track. And believe me, I wanted to. If we'd stayed on track, we would have run out on the backstretch, and we would have made it back to pit lane. So it would have, just not been a good ending that way. So it was all we could do. But then after the race, you just sort of like, you've got this weird feeling like that was amazing. It's like bittersweet because you're just like, it was such an amazing experience, amazing feeling to be leading the Indy 500. Like it's everything you dream about. But then when it doesn't happen, you're like, it's like this sinking feeling. Like, I hope that's not as close as I ever get, like that's really close. You don't get many opportunities to get that close, and when it doesn't work out, you're like, man, I hope that's not as close. I hope I get another chance to be in that position, if that makes sense.
Well, I think you will, just based on your tenacity, and it's yeah. Well, like I said, when I seen that, I was always wondering, like, man, if I was in that position, what would I have done? Like, I'd have been like talking, like, can I get to lap 199? Because again, I would have stayed out as long as possible as you can, hoping for that yellow, because at a yellow, you can probably limp your way around. Like, do whatever you do with your tools and just idle it around. You got to finish. But I think you guys made the right call, because the last thing you want to do is run out of fuel and then not finish that race. Like there's honor in finishing that race and doing all 200 laps,
Yeah. And at the same time, I did question them. They're like, okay, we're going to pit this lap. And I'm like, there's a little light that comes on. It's the collector light.
Yeah.
So it means that they're at the very bottom of the tank. And usually when that comes on, if it comes on any earlier than sort of exit at turn 2. Exit at turn 2. If it comes on there, you've got to pit that lap or you won't make it back. So, we're going through one, they're like, yeah, we're going to have to pit this lap. And I'm like, yeah, the collector light's not on. So I think we can go one more at least. And then sure enough, I exit turn 2 and the light comes on. I'm like, son of a bitch. So, they knew what was up. I knew what was up. And that was when I was like, okay, I guess I'm pitting. So
that's, that to me was one of the most exciting races I've seen, just because, obviously you were with Andretti, and was that your last year running with Andretti for that one?
I actually came back in 2021 with them.
Oh, with them, you're right. Yeah.
No, and each year the car was amazing. They gave me such a good race car.
They give a great race car for that race. Like Michael, they have that dialed in, and they, if you're in an Andretti car, you always have a shot to win, I believe. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, the problem was that the 2 years I joined Andretti, the car was amazing, and then we were with Honda, and they were the 2 years that Chevy was the stronger engine, or the engine to be with. So it was like, man, I got to time this better,
Yeah. If you were in different, the year I think Townsend, Bell, that year,
2015,
14 and 15, they were
so strong.
They were strong. Like even, we had a car in 14 with Hinch running it.
Yeah.
EJ Vizo qualified that because Hinch actually got hurt by debris in the Grand Prix. And then EJ did everything, but then he got cleared and he was able to run. But yeah, he qualified second, and they were running toward the top, and they had strong cars that year. But they made fuel, and they were fast. It's like, what better thing? You better fuel mileage, and you're fast.
That's pretty good ingredients right there to go and get some milk.
That's why your teammate was 19th and won the race. So
yeah.
So what possibly? I mean, obviously, Catherine Legg. What did she say to you after it happened? Like, what was the excuse? If you don't want to go into it, but I would probably just walk off the track and be like, you could, but then again, you got hurt. But it was like, what could she say about that? Like, that's a critical mistake to make in that, you have to pay attention at 240 miles an hour.
Yeah, no, I didn't really get a long answer. It was just, hey, everyone checked up, and I didn't. So I'm like, well, yeah.
In practice, you can't win anything in practice.
Yeah. So I really don't know exactly the ins and outs of what happened and why that happened. I don't want to, I was obviously disappointed, and for good reasons. It's not like it took me out of the Indy 500, which is something I worked for a year towards, and you only get so many chances to even do that race. So it's disappointed in that. And then also just the fact that I have broken back, that's going to be something that I live with the rest of my life. So it's kind of multiple facets, but yeah. And also I just kind of disappointed the way it's handled. There was, you see most drivers when they clearly are in the wrong and something happened, they own up to it. I certainly do. If I know I messed up,
profusely apologize.
Yeah. Hey, my bad. This was all me. I'm really sorry. But, I just felt like there was some of that was lacking. The ownership of what happened was lacking. So that was just something that just really frustrated me. So there's not much I could say to that. When
that's what it
someone's
seemed
not honest with themselves to own up to something they did, then it's it's just a waste of time even.
Yeah, I think it was a lot going on, and the broadcast team, they did a really good job. And actually, we had Paul Tracy on a while back, and I was saying, they did a good job with the broadcast, and from that part, it seemed like there was a lack of remorse. I don't know if it was just she was in shock, if she was just like, hey, I'm fighting also to prove to be here, and and almost like a defense mechanism. So you don't know what position that she was in. So I feel bad for her as well. but ultimately it's like, okay, you know, you can't, like, you have to pay attention at those speeds. And if you don't, people get hurt. And
for sure,
you know, it was just sad to see that happen. And then, you know, Graham Rahal had struggles, and I do believe like you guys picked the best replacement for you to go in, because Graham's such a nice guy, and you know, he's a capable race car driver. He's won races in IndyCar, and he's probably just as tall as you guys. Like, what's wrong? Like, what the hell are you guys eating? You guys are, like, you're pretty tall for an IndyCar driver. So
yeah, I think I have the record for being the tallest, and that's not the record you want. So,
no.
you know, it's Graham, honestly, just such a class act. You know, he filled in for me. All the sponsors were super happy, you know, because there's a team of sponsors that really make this all happen. And, you know, I felt my first thought, honestly, when I was laying in the hospital bed, I'm like, hey, this is what's happened. And I immediately knew that, well, I can't race with a fractured T12 vertebrae.
No.
So I'm like, I'm out. And the first thought is just like disappointment for them, you know, because they all, you know, came together to like support this entry, support me. And, you know, I'm being ruled out. So it was important to get the right guy in to fill my shoes. And, you know, with what happened to him the day before, you know, it's so crazy because I was literally texting him the night before, you know, like I'm sure his phone must have blew up, you know, like after he didn't qualify, you know, I'm just like, hey, you know, you'll come back stronger next year, and you handled everything like a class act. And then little did I know that he'd be taking my seat, you know, or taking over for me the next day. So, you know, I agree. I think it was the perfect choice, and I got such a lot of respect for Graham and a good relationship with him. So, you know, I'm happy it kind of worked out that way.
Still, the you know, and I'm not going to keep you all night because we could talk forever about racing, but so, and this is going to the mind and the psyche of a race car driver. So obviously, tragically, your brother lost his life racing at Pocono. I was there at that race. I saw what happened. Sage Karam was in the lead. Sage Karam, you know, kind of minding his own business, just lost it. And that happens when I said you have to pay, like, even in the lead, like something happened, whether the car broke, I still don't know what happened, whether it was just like, you know as well as I know, you look the wrong way, and like you're, even in a passenger car it could happen, and you snap it and he hits and the cone went up in the air, and you know, your brother was probably a half a lap behind him. And if he was going, if your brother was going a half a mile an hour slower, or half a mile an hour quick, faster, a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, like inches, he'd still be here today. And then your accident happens. Somebody drives over the back of you, okay, almost kills you. Okay, you break your back. That's not like, you know, and I don't mean, and again, if you don't want to answer this, or I'm out of line for answering this question, you know, please tell me. Next time you see me, you can kick me. But my point is, like, all of that happened, okay? Someone that you dearly love loses his life in such a tragic way, doing something he loved. And then you get run over the back of, and then now, still to this day, if tomorrow you had the money, like a sponsor came by, you would be in that race again. If tomorrow somebody said, hey, they're running Pocono, I have no doubt, like, you'd be like, I'm in. If the Pocono 500 came back, Stefan Wilson would be in the Pocono 500. So where do you think, like, what part of you is able to put that aside and say, things that happened to Dan Weldon and, you know, your brother, and like where does it, how do you get back? How do I
handle it?
It's tough to even put into words.
Yeah. I mean, so I think about it like this, right? Like for Justin, who he was, like, he was the person he was because of what he was able to do in his life, and what he was able to pursue his passion. And there's sort of two avenues, right? You let the fear of what could happen, like, take over, and then you take another job that's not racing. But then that's not something that he was passionate about, not something that he was a job that he loves, so he chose to forego the fear and just pursue what he was passionate about, and that made him who he was, made him the person he was, and made him the person that we all love. So I sort of look at it that way. It's like we all have choices we can make, and if you sort of let fear kind of control those choices, then you're not really living, life that you can be happy with, So like, do I wish that things had been different? Absolutely. There's so many things you think about, like you just said, an inch to the left, an inch to the right. That's literally all it was. And the timeline is different, but at the end of the day, like, it happened and nothing we can do can change that. And for me, I had a very, like, it was as a driver, you're sort of, there's a couple of different ways to kind of deal with the danger aspect of it. And some people kind of like just bury that, and be like, it doesn't happen to me. It happens to other people. It's fine. Like, that's the way of dealing with it. They put their head in the sand and they just, blindly go into it. And that you see that so much in like young kids and young drivers. They just don't have a clue that how dangerous it is, what they're doing or how they're driving, how dangerous it is. They just bury their head. And I think there's the other group, and this is sort of the group that acknowledges it and goes, what is more important? Or like, how important is this to me in my life? And you either overcome it or you don't. And I think I was probably in the first group until what happened to Justin happened. I think Justin probably was in the second group the whole time. Like I said, he was so wise beyond his years. And, I was probably in the first group, and then when it happened to Justin, it's like, I can't really bury my head in the sand anymore. Like, this is like, if it can happen to him, it can happen to me. Like, it can happen to anyone. And, following Justin's accident and passing, like, I had definitely a bit of a time to just sort of think about it myself and like really sort of analyze what was important to me. And, as important as life is, you've got to be happy with life that you're leading. And, racing was just racing, and IndyCar and the Indy 500 was just so important to me that I thought I'd be just totally miserable if I let fear kind of take over and stop me doing what it is that I love. So that's how I kind of dealt with it. And I haven't really changed. The incident last year, like, it kind of makes you strong, made me a little bit stronger in a way, because it's just like, all right, like, I didn't mess up. It wasn't my fault. Like, I didn't like do anything that resulted in that. Like, if I was the cause of the problem, I think I maybe like viewing things a bit differently. Maybe I don't know.
Or
but
second guessing yourself.
Second guessing myself. But I know that wasn't the case, and so I going through it, it's like, okay, well, I've gone through like something really bad, and I've come out the other side of it. So what doesn't kill you makes you stronger in a way. So yeah, I'm determined, and I'm still passionate and keen, and the desire to race the Indy 500 is still ranks higher than the fear of the possible outcomes. So, when that day comes that the fear is greater than the desire, then I won't race anymore.
That's a very profound statement you said. And interesting, you said, like, you weren't the cause of, like, it wasn't lack of talent or some mistake that you made. And same thing, your brother didn't make any mistakes that day, and it was, and I don't say, anyone ahead of him made a mistake. It was just, it could be.
It was a racing incident.
And like, listen, me and you can jump in a car today, and like we'd be driving for groceries, and a drunk driver hit us, and it's like we didn't make a mistake. But so when your time is here, your time is there, and it's like, I definitely know you have, a fan in heaven. So, looking down at you, and cheering you on, and I believe, because, we talk on the phone sometimes, and I believe that you're going to get back to the Indy 500. I hope it's this year, and I hope it's next year. I think the more consistent you are at getting into that race, like you've proven you can lead that race and you can win that race. But then again, 20 something other drivers can do it as well, because it is unlike F1. IndyCar is very, very talented and very close. Like you said, 1 second and you could be, 33rd. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And but here's the thing though, even that car that's like, say, 30th, okay, great. Well, what if other cars have a problem in the pits? You lose 1 or 2 seconds in the pits, that's a big difference on the track. And you do that 8 times or 7 times, that could be the difference of your race. And that's why, you can, like, I believe somebody, it hasn't happened yet, but somebody who finishes or qualifies 33rd will win that race one day. Then that's going to be like the guy that, or the girl that gets in at the last, like, bump day with like 5 seconds left. And one day that person's going to win. And that's going to make and I always joke.
Speaking of bump day, I mean, it's going to be wild this year. There's going to be 36 cars. I mean, the weird thing is, right, like, they talk about bump days back in the 90s, right, the heyday, but like there was like 33 cars that were like known to be like, 30, I would say 30 cars that are like, okay, they're like pretty safe.
Yeah.
And then there's like 10 that are going for those last 3 spots that are like, they've just thrown shit together and like, let's run it, like, so now like the stakes are so high. Like, everyone is spending so much money on each of these entries. So much money. Like, to put it together, I mean, it's like over $1 million, and to put an entry for the Indy 500 together now. So the risk has never been higher, and then the field has never been tighter. So, there's only 3 guys that are going to get bumped, but trying to pick who those 3 guys are, like, it's hard to do right now, because everyone is so competitive that if you're outside the top 20, like,
you got problems.
You're at risk.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of tears on bump day, because last year there was only 1, and it was tense because again, the field is so tight. It could be a lot of guys could be feeling that pressure, and now we're talking about there's 3 guys that are going home potentially. Or more. It's like
if you find the money, you're gonna go, and now, okay, great, now we have 37 entries. And so let me ask you a question. If on the business side of things, for people, I kind of know the answer, but I'm gonna let you answer it.
Yeah.
So let's just say it's $1 million. Some teams are 1.3 to 1.5 million, depending on the team you're with, right? So let's just say you got the $1 million and you're the 37th entry, and you put your money down, you got the team, you're going, and let's just say a team that does that gets bumped. Do you get a refund? Do you, like?
I wish it worked like that. Like, unfortunately,
that's what's at risk. And then the sponsor who paid you to, like, just say it's Coca-Cola. They said, Stefan, here's $1 million. It's like, wait a minute, we paid that and we're not going to see you on Sunday? And they bought the sweet tickets and they're there, and they're like, well, shit, who do we root for now?
Yeah, I know. It's wild. I mean, like I said, back in the 90s, that problem of like who gets bumped was less so, because the cost wasn't so high.
Yeah.
Like, the cost was so little in regards in comparison to today.
Yeah.
Even 10 years ago, the costs to put, sling an entry together to go and try and qualify was, 20% of what it is today, probably.
Probably was 200 to 250K. Yeah. For one race. Yeah.
That, I mean, it was still, no one wants to get bumped, right? But like, still, like, but now we're talking about like real solid entries. Like, even last year, right? You had Graham Rahal gets bumped. You got Fifthford Bank on the side of the car, and United Rentals.
United Rentals,
and now they're not on a car on race day. So it's a huge problem.
And he's competitive. Look what he did. I think he had 2 poles that year too. Like later that year.
Yeah.
Later
in the year. So no, it's it's a an issue, but it's kind of what Indy is. I mean, as a sponsor, as a team, everyone as a driver that's making an investment to sort of put this program together to go and race at Indy, you're accepting that, hey, like there is risk involved, and like typically like a team is not going to do a refund or anything like that. If they've got other team cars, they're going to try and accommodate some of those sponsors across other cars that they have on race day. But that's kind of what Indy is all about. There's high risk, and at the end of the day, like the reward for getting it right, getting in the show, and then winning it outweighs the risk for a lot of people.
Yeah, I always say the track picks that winner. It's like the racing gods will speak, and I've always said that about like Indy, Daytona, Bathurst, like those tracks. It's like, they may not pick the winner of Alabama, the Barber race, but they're certainly picking, the winner of the big ones, and Le Mans and all that. And so, other than the Indy 500, which is obviously, I think you'll be doing that, like you said, until the fear outweighs the desire. What other, like, are you looking to get into any like sport car or any prototype or IMSA, or like, is there any other racing maybe on the horizon for you?
Yeah, no. I've done a bit of IMSA the last couple of years. Raced the Rolex 24. So I wouldn't count it out. But it's again, it's so challenging. There's a lot of need for sponsors, and even in those series. So I'm sort of getting too old, to be chasing sponsors to do anything in sports cars. So, I'm sort of mainly just focusing on other aspects of life. Like I'm, really working on the coaching side. So I'm coaching drivers in different series like Porsche Carrera Cup and in Ferrari Challenge. So focusing on that as sort of, a day-to-day job. Being able to pursue Indy is still something that I'm chasing. So, it's really like the Indy 500 is the passion project, and something that I'm continue to work at daily. But what pays the bills is the coaching. And I got a newborn that was 5 weeks old now.
Congrats to you and your wife. Yeah.
Yeah, life. The responsibilities keep piling up, so I gotta think smart.
Well, your newborn, his middle name is
Justin. Yeah, Felix Justin Wilson. Yeah,
I thought that was such a classy, honorable move by you and your lovely bride. And I wore again this Colorado shirt in honor of the fellow Buffaloes out there, right? Or now, are you college? And obviously, you're from. What do you like? Do you like it say Great Britain or United Kingdom or England? Like
Great Britain, England, UK. Usually I just say UK.
UK.
But then people might think I'm from referring to University of Kentucky, I guess. If I say that, UK. Yeah. But I'm very much adopted American sports.
Nice.
You got college basketball is a big thing in our house, where we
really?
like watching the Indiana Hoosiers.
Oh, okay.
I've got to learn how to pronounce Hoosiers better. But being out in Colorado, obviously the buzz around, the CU and the program that Deion Sanders is building is been really fun to sort of witness, be around, and, hopefully that continues for a few more years, and looking forward to seeing what he can do in his second year.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. So I wear this and people are like, oh, a bandwagon fan. I was like, no, first of all, I might be a bandwagon Colorado fan, but I'm not a bandwagon Deion Sanders fan, because like I was, since I was a kid, New York Yankees fan. So when Deion Sanders, like, he played baseball for the New York Yankees, and he was electrifying. And then obviously he was on the Atlanta Falcons as a football player. Didn't much like the Falcons, but I followed him and because he was exciting.
Yeah.
So anywhere he goes, I watch him because at the end of the day, he's a Hall of Famer. So I was like, hey, so call me what you want, but like I'm going to support him. Now my main college team is Alabama. So much like you guys with the two football teams in Sheffield, and down there in Alabama, you're either picking Bama or Auburn. That's like, you know, so it's like you have to pick one. So that when you were saying, yep, you got to pick one, and you're with United, and if you're with the other one, and that's why it's like in Australia when they do rugby, it's like you like rugby union or rugby league, and you know, it's like down there, so it's kind of funny how they do
Bama
that.
Fan. Are you from Alabama originally?
No, I was in the military.
How'd you pick Alabama? Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So I grew up in New Jersey. You know, back then we really, like you could say Rutgers, but we really don't have a college football team. Like they're non-existent. No offense, New Jersey.
Basketball team, yeah.
Well, I mean, not anymore. The Nets, the Nets were good, but not when I was growing up. They were just the doormat. But so when I went to basic training, one of the soldiers came up to me, and you know, another trainee like me is like, "Hey, who do you like?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I had no clue. And he's like, "Because college football wasn't our thing." Right, so he's like, "You're either a Bama fan or an Auburn fan." I'm like, "Well, what do you like?" And this guy's like 6'6", 250, like just
good answer. I like that.
And he goes, "Bama." I'm like, Roll Tide. So yeah, I gave in to peer pressure. That was one of my only times doing that. But that's how I became a college football fan. I absolutely love college football. I love all sports, and you know, like racing isn't my main passion. I race obviously stadium super trucks and sport car stuff and different things, but I do it for fun because of the competitiveness, the brotherhood, and the camaraderie. But my real first love is always baseball. Like, and you know, and I was good at it. So like, you know, so.
Well, next time you come out for a CU game, then hit me up.
Oh yeah, I would love that. You got tickets? You got tickets? You trying to sell them? You trying to sell them? I can see you outside. Like
you can't get them now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, now it's like the hottest thing in sports. But man, what a lovely conversation. Thank you for jumping on. Like I promise you, we'll get more than 3 viewers. So hopefully somebody. And we do get, actually, brands are sending us, I had a beer sponsor of all things. They send me some stuff, and I'm like, wrong person to send that to. I don't drink. And I never have. So it's like, okay, they missed their mark. But, hey, beer sponsor, you know, Stefan will take your money and run very fast around the Indianapolis 500. So, you know, yeah, like there's probably not a sponsor you wouldn't take the money for, you know. Exactly. So... yeah, so where can they find you? So your social media?
Yeah, I'm on social media, so all the typical sites, Instagram and Twitter. My username is just @Steph, STEF. I always put PH people, but STEF_Wilson. So yeah, no, appreciate being on, Bill, and appreciate to catch up. It's been a fun talk.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.